Let's talk about that phenomenon that most of us have, that we feel like we have to have everything perfect on the first try. That's baloney, which is easy for me to say in hindsight, but also I still deal with it. Y'all, I have been sewing for over 25 years. I've had my business for 9 years, and the last 5 of that have been full-time. It's safe to say that I have sewn a lot. But am I an expert? Absolutely not. Because to have a business that you run by yourself, you don't just sew the stuff. Like, somebody doesn't just hand you the material and tell you what to do. You have to do everything from start to finish. So I have to figure out what people are going to buy. I have to figure out what design, like what the thing is going to be. Then I have to figure out what materials to make it out of, what prints and colors are probably going to sell the best, and then how to make that item efficiently and quickly so that I can make the most amount of profit. And then in my case, I make sure everything is sustainable, which adds another step. And then I do the sewing and packaging and then marketing, and hopefully people will buy it. And a lot of the time something is messed up along the way and it has to change. And I don't have the time and resources to make a perfect product right out the gate because it's just me. I don't have a team like that's doing testing and quality control and all that stuff. So I have to do that myself, or hopefully it's not too terrible that customers can't just be like, hey, this is a little off, like, you know, just letting you know. But today I wanted to tell you about 2 product lines that I have had that have had varying levels of success, but something is wrong with each of them that I am going to fix. So those products are my foldable tote bags and my key fobs. Both of these were intended to use up scrap material, and I believe I succeeded in doing that to an extent. The key fobs use a smaller strip of fabric. It's like 1.5 inches or so wide, so I can use pretty small pieces. They just have to be long. And then for these foldable tote bags, I had pieces that were a little bit bigger because I had these drawstring bags back in the day that didn't work out too well either, because I marketed them as reusable gift bags, but people are like, well, I don't know what size of gift I'm going to get yet, so I don't know if they're going to fit in this. Understandable, but yeah, they didn't work out super well. But I was able to cut those drawstring bags perfectly in half and get the outside piece of the foldable tote bags. It's a bag that folds up into a wallet-sized pouch, and then I added a long crossbody strap. So I was able to make the bag part with just exactly a 1/2 yard of fabric, and made that into loosely a square, and then use the excess to make the strap. And I try to use cotton or cellulose thread, which is going to be biodegradable. I try not to use polyester thread unless it's necessary for a project. And I added metal snaps, so that way this whole thing will be biodegradable. It's not going to be like the plastic reusable bag. These on their own as a concept work pretty well. And actually when I launched them, I made a video on TikTok that went viral and I sold out of them. Then when that happened, I went and bought some more secondhand material because I didn't want to use new material. And I got them posted pretty quickly after that. But they just didn't, like, none of the videos popped off like they did before, which is how it goes. Like, it's really hard to manage that. I've had several now viral videos, and like, you're not going to get that again. Like, again, for the same products. Like, if you have a viral video where you announce a new product, it sells out, does great, and then you make another video when you restock, very unlikely that it's going to pop off again. I've sold a couple here and there. I only sold maybe 2 at markets last year, but the fatal flaw I think with these is that they are too expensive. At least for the average consumer, because unless you're dedicated to the no plastic thing, no polyester, you want it to be biodegradable, then you're going to opt for a product that is like $2 or $3 mass produced. That's just one of those little ones you just cram up into a little ball and pull the drawstring, and that's it. But because of the materials and the labor cost of these, I can't even offer these at wholesale price like I do with everything else, because that's just so high. I did not want to price them any higher than $24. But some part of the process is taking way too long, and I need to adjust that. Here's a lighter color one so you can see that better. And you can put in an extra pocket so that way you don't have everything falling down to the bottom of the bag. And strength is a big factor in a reusable bag, and this is just regular quilt cotton. It's not super thick, which is nice because it packs easily, but it's also not as durable. Like, it's not going to be like tissue paper thin and rip like immediately, but it's not going to be as durable as something like canvas. But then if I used canvas, it wouldn't be packable because it'd be too thick. And for most of them, if I could do it with the material that I had, I did not put a real seam in the bottom of them. It's just the fold of the fabric is the bottom. I just put in a stitch at the bottom to make the bag expandable. But if that seam rips open, your stuff's not going to fall out. It's really freaking hot. It's like 98 degrees outside. So I'm feeling it. This is obviously not big enough for groceries. It's just like for, you know, if you go out to the farmer's market or you go to a handmade market, then you can put your little stuff in here. And it doesn't close all the way. It just has a snap like that closes it like that, so it won't just like fall open. That might be a turn off for some people because it doesn't secure, you know. The main issue is the cost and the fact they take a long time to make. I actually have not made any since we've moved, and that was last April, so like 14 months ago. So I'm retiring the foldable totes, and I have them on a pretty big sale on my website just to clear them out and use up the rest of the materials. So what I did was the ones that I have materials for or that I've like halfway started, I put those on the website also, so I will have to make some eventually, I think. Unless they just don't sell ever, and then they'll just turn into something else. The next thing is the key fobs. So I got a few requests for these, and I started making some. I've sold a few here and there, like on Etsy, and there's one in particular that had raccoons on it. I actually was able to restock a few of those recently. But I only sold a few of those at markets, and I was like, But I was starting to get the feeling that I maybe should change them or like take them down and put something else there to use that space at my market booth. A couple markets ago, a customer came up to me and handed me this. And I was like, okay, that's the last straw. It's not their fault, it is mine, because they have had this issue for a little while. These key fob hardware things, the little clamp piece, it's not like garbage, but you have to secure it more than you think you do. So I went through all of them, pulled them, and a lot of them were coming loose. I was like, oh my god. Like, does anybody that has ever bought these from me still have a functional one? I don't know, but I felt really bad about that. There are little spikes on the inside, only on one side of this key fob hardware, and then the other side was just slipping out because there's nothing holding it in. So if you sew them together, then they're both attached. Now I did not want to waste any of them because they were still useful as long as I could secure them properly. So I painstakingly took them all apart and then took over to the machine and sewed the ends together, and then had to pry these pieces open again and then put them back together. And then I tested them all again to make sure that they wouldn't come apart. So those are now on my website with a few new prints that I have found scraps of to make new pieces. And then once those are mostly gone, I'm going to switch to a different kind of hardware that I just sew. Like, it's not a clamp, I have to sew the thing around it so it's more secure than this little clamp thing. I thought this would sell like hotcakes because they're pretty inexpensive, and I see a lot of other makers that have to make a bunch of them for their markets. So I'm like, is it because people know about these clamps not being good? So I'm retiring both the foldable bags and the key fobs. I'm putting them on 30% off for now, just to clear them out, and they don't take up like too much room, but I don't want to have like two different kinds of the same item at the same time because I would rather sell through the old ones first. I honestly think that if that customer hadn't brought me the broken one, that I would just have continued trying to sell them on my website. And the thing is that I take for granted that people have seen my old videos like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and that they know what I have, but the reality is that most people that watch your videos on there are not followers, so every video you have to assume that people who have never seen your content before are going to see it, so you have to just constantly post about the same thing over and over again, which is really irritating to me, but I understand why it's necessary. One of the ways I make that not so boring for myself is I try to launch new prints or colors of things regularly, so that way if I post about the new stuff, people will go to my website and then they'll see the old stuff and maybe buy some of that also. And speaking of which, I have thousands of non-paper towels to make because I need to restock my website and my market booth and the consignment shop that I'm in now, and really make some space on my shelves because I bought a lot of flannel when Joanne was going out of business, and I need to clear some of that out and actually get it up so I can make money off of it instead of it just sitting here, because your girl maxed out the credit card because it was like $1.50 a yard, and even if I had it, I will never get those prices again. So yeah, I bought a lot of flannel And most of it is actually new prints I've never had before, so I have to take photos and list those. And then some of it I only got a little bit of, so I can't really list them on my website, so I've been making those for my market booth. And I've also had a massive headache trying to get thread, because I use a specialty thread that is only made in Portugal, but I had to get it through a distributor in the UK, or a retailer in the UK, not even a distributor. They are now out of stock. I ordered the last bit that they had, and I've been trying to get in contact with the manufacturer for like a month now. They replied to me at first, but then I'm like, okay, let's make an order, and then they've disappeared. I believe I remember the retailer before saying that the manufacturer like goes on holiday in the summer. It's weird to me as an American that people just do that, but it's normal, I guess, in Europe. So hopefully that's the case, and they're not just not wanting to talk to me. But I'm switching to my signature purple thread, which I actually still have a tiny bit of. I'm saving just in case I need to fix something or make something that I have listed with purple thread, because that people will notice if you use a different color thread because of how the things are, like it's so prominent on the product. But that special order color, I had to order like 40 spools minimum, and that's a lot at one time, and it's very expensive. So I switched to an ivory color, which is easier, and they don't have any minimum on that because that is the color the material is naturally, so they don't have to dye it or anything, so it's a little bit cheaper. But that means I want to have a lot of product photos to take soon, and speaking of which, I recorded my struggles with getting photography right in this room. So even though this has a nice bright window, not always great. So if you're interested in a foldable tote bag or a key fob wristlet that's not broken, then you can head to my website, Cruelty-Free.com. I know most of y'all that are already subscribed are following me for my Etsy tips, and these are not on Etsy. So go to my website instead. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's like 98 degrees here, and the ice cream truck is driving around and they play Christmas music. And speaking of hot, I did a market this past Sunday in Annapolis, which was also very, very hot. But I did quite a bit better, well, not like insanely better, but something better than the last market I did, which I posted a video about. Like, I actually made a profit. So that's a plus, but it wasn't much because it was just so hot. I was like, I don't even blame anybody for not wanting to be out here right now. I did a pretty major upgrade to my booth that actually didn't cost anything. I just moved some stuff around and used what I already had. And I got compliments on it, and it worked a little bit better, I think, for people that were browsing. So I'm getting there with the setup. I'm trying to improve like a little bit each time instead of just going all out and being perfectionist, like, you know, like we've been talking about for the entire video. But I learned the hard way to not be perfectionist about my market booth, because that cost me an entire market. I could not go to one a couple years ago because I just didn't have any setup at all because I couldn't make it perfect. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to upgrade slowly, like a little bit each time. I'll make notes on what I think is most important throughout the market. That way I can go back the next time and fix that or add something. Like this time I made some updates that included like wood pieces that I should have maybe stained to match everything else, but it's so hot and humid they wouldn't have been ready by the time that I did the market. They would have still been wet probably because it's just so humid they won't be able to dry. But I am almost finished with my banner, so that might be the next video I post, is showing the finished banner and how I made it. Because my whole vibe is upcycled and eco-friendly stuff, and I didn't want to just buy a printed one. But that is it for me today. Make sure to drink some water, and I will see you in the next one.